Hello from Arlington, Virginia, and ISEP Study Abroad headquarters. This is ISEP Live. Thanks for joining us. My name's Chris. Today we're talking about internships and international business in Melbourne, London, and Milan, Italy. Thanks again for joining us. We have a lot to cover, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at what we're going to be talking through today. First, we'll have a brief description of what is ISEP, how does it work, what program options are out there for you. From there, we're going to jump into talking about Latrobe University in Melbourne, Australia. From there, we'll travel to University of Roehampton in London, England, and we'll finish off with Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore in Milan, Italy. And finally, we'll have time for your question and answers. Question and answer is key for us today. We want to get your questions and be able to answer all of them. So there's a couple different ways you can ask us questions. You'll see in the sidebar of your screen there's a question and answer tab. Feel free to type your questions in there or connect with us on social media using the hashtag ISEPLive, and we'll be able to take questions that way as well. So make sure you're getting those questions out there so we can take care of them. Without any further ado, we're going to jump into our first program. We have our Director of ISEP Direct Programs, Danita. She's going to be talking to us a little bit about program options and then talking to us about our university in Melbourne, Australia. So take it away, Danita.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danita, and I'll be sharing with you briefly about two program options you have with ISEP. The two options with ISEP is ISEP Exchange and ISEP Direct. So how does ISEP Exchange and Direct work? Let me start with ISEP Direct first. On ISEP Direct, you basically pay a program fee. And what ISEP does with that program fee is we pay the host university on your behalf, and we guarantee your placement. Basically, it's like 98% guaranteed, and we that fee includes tuition, room, and board. And some of our programs it only includes tuition and room. ISEP Exchange, on the other hand, is where you switch spaces with an international student, basically, and you pay your tuition, housing, and meals at your university, either in the United States or if you're an international student at your international university, and then you switch with another student. And so that means your tuition, housing, and meals are already paid for by an international student studying abroad through ISEP. If you want to learn more, please check out our website, and we can also connect you with ambassadors where they can share more with you about their own exchange and direct experience. Moving on, we're going to talk a little bit more about Latrobe University, which is located in Melbourne, Australia. So before I talk about Latrobe University in Melbourne, let me share something with you about Australia. I've visited Australia twice, and once I played field hockey there, and another time I visited a few universities there on a site visit. And I want to share a recent study with you, a recent study done by a brand new organization in Australia, interviewed international students in Australia and asked them, how do you perceive Australians? And in this study, they said they perceive Australians as very positive, very forward-looking, very dynamic, and very open. And so that's a good thing for you to think about as you go visit Australia. Australians tend to be very open to US students or any international student. Something else that I want to share with you guys is that there was a New York Times article that talked about how there's an invasion of Australian cafes into New York and LA, and they were talking about how the coffee culture of Australia is influencing Melbourne. And something to think about is that in Melbourne there's a huge coffee culture. It's like the cultural mecca of Australia. And as you can see on the screen with the presentation, coffee drinkers of the world unite. I'm a big coffee drinker, and something to think about in Melbourne is that they're actually exporting their culture and bringing it to the United States and influencing our food and beverage industry, and that's a very positive thing to think about. Something else that I want to mention to you is Latrobe University. Their main campus is called Bandura campus, and the Bandura campus is about 8 miles to 10 kilometers from Melbourne, downtown Melbourne. Melbourne is a very walkable city. You can use public transportation to get from the center city to the campus. And I want to mention something else to you. It's one of the most beautiful campuses in Australia. It's located on this beautiful parklands, and it's very, very green. So what can you study at Melbourne? We're talking about international business today. You can study a wide variety of courses. Some of the courses you can study is commerce, international finance, business, international marketing. There is a very wide range of courses that you can study, and with Melbourne there's tons of opportunities to see if you can volunteer and do internships as well. Something I want to share with you is that apart from our courses available in business, law, and management, you actually have access to the full curriculum. And what I would do is, if I were you, if you say you were a business major, I would take a few business courses and see if you can take courses that you may supplement your minor as well. Now, something else that you can think about is that there is a Latrobe study abroad program that is focusing on Australian culture, and you also explore the wildlife. It's great for students who are biology majors, also for students who are not biology majors, and you do tons of site visits around Melbourne. So that's something you can look at. I would suggest you go to the website. You can also contact us and we can provide you with more information. And the last thing I want to share with you about Latrobe University is that there's a Latrobe Ambassador Scholarship. So this is applicable to our students who choose the ISEP Direct program. So if you want to learn more, go to our website and then you can learn how to be Latrobe Ambassador, and you can actually qualify for a scholarship as well. Now, if you're a direct student or if you're interested in going next spring, a very good option for you would be to go on our ISEP Direct program. And if you look at the screen and the presentation there, ISEP Direct, the deadline is November 15th, 2014, so you have a little bit more than a month left. So be sure you go talk to your study abroad office and start your online application. Also, for our option that includes tuition, housing, and meals, that is $17,750. If, however, you're thinking, I want to go next fall, you have two options. You can go on exchange or you can go in direct. And pay attention because there are two different deadlines here. For ISEP Direct, the fall deadline is going to be April 15th, 2015. And to say you want to study using the tuition, housing, and meals option, and that also includes insurance, we actually dropped our fee, and the program fee is now $15,500. If you want to go in exchange, your deadline is going to be February 1st, 2014, if you want to go next fall. Something else, if you look to the right of the screen, is that you have two full-year options. You can study in Australia and on their academic full year, and that would be, the deadline would be November 15th, 2015, and that program fee is $37,900. It includes tuition, housing, and meals. Or if you want to go next fall for the full year, that cost is going to be $34,250. And without further ado, I'll give it back to you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Danita. Before you go, let's talk about a little bit more about Melbourne. Tell us, what do you think the biggest fallacy is that people see going to Australia?
I think one of the biggest fallacies in Australia, and having been to Australia twice and having worked at the Australian Embassy, is people think Australia is very monocultural, and it's not monocultural at all. It's very, very diverse. Australians love to travel. They tend to take a gap year either right after high school or right after college, and they go and live for a year or a couple of years in other countries. So that's one thing I'll say. And the other thing is that there's a very big influence from surrounding countries. It's very, very diverse.
Great. Yeah. Tell us, you talked a lot about Latrobe. You didn't mention housing. What does housing look like on campus? No,
that's a great question. So you can stay in the Grisham College Residence Hall, and they provide you with a kitchen, and there's also a cafe. So if you choose the tuition and housing option, that just means you can basically use the kitchen and you can take care of your own meals. If you do choose the tuition, housing, and meals option, meals will be provided, and you'll have access to the cafeteria and cafes.
Thank you so much, Danita. And remember, if you have questions about this program or any questions about ISEP in general, ask them over on the side or tweet at us using the hashtag ISEPLive. But we will go ahead and move on and talk about our next program. We have our regional director for Europe, director of European programs, Mary Catherine, here to talk about the University of Roehampton in London. So I'll turn it over to Mary Catherine.
Hi everyone. I'm so excited today to talk to you about the University of Roehampton because I have some tips for you, and these tips aren't just overall tips, but they're personal ones. I studied abroad in London so much that my home university started calling me a repeat offender. I went on to earn my master's there and intern in Parliament before returning to the United States. So my first tip, number one tip, is London's actually really affordable. All of the galleries and museums across the city are actually free of charge to the public. Second tip, under affordable would be that students actually have discounted rates for theater and cinema. You can show up about an hour in advance, any major theater production, and any seats that are still available are actually going to be discounted to you primarily as a student and at a lower rate than anyone else is able to get. This is one of my favorite parts. My next part of that is that you're going to want to check out Time Out London every week. It's a publication that's out at the newsagents and in the grocery stores, and it's actually going to say everything that's free that week, from street concerts to things going on in Hyde Park. It really teaches you how to be a Londoner and really live in a really affordable way. My second tip is that even though you're in this thriving city, you're also on a green campus, right? So the University of Roehampton is located in southwest London. And in that part of the area, there's lots of open parks and green areas, and the campus is comprised of really old, beautiful Victorian and Georgian buildings, as well as modern buildings like your housing. There, you actually are going to be sorted into campuses, like sorted into houses. Any Harry Potter fans? And from there, you actually do your academics and your studying and any sort of group work with your different colleges. And it's all in one place. My next tip is that if you are a business student or you're looking to study business in London, you couldn't pick a better place to be. I mean, London really is one of the business capitals of the world. You've got all of these multinational companies with their hubs there, or US companies that actually have their European, Middle East, and Asia hubs actually headquartered out of London. So to study international business in a city like this, I mean, you couldn't get better. So take that level of experience of London as your classroom and then plug that into the fact that you're going to be studying alongside not just Americans, not just students from England and Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, but across the EU and across the world. All right, so what's my last tip? My last tip is Roehampton actually makes it very easy for you to find courses. So as a student who wants to actually study in the study abroad curriculum, there's actually a course catalog just for you. Roehampton lays it out way in advance whether you're going abroad for spring, for fall, or the full year. And you don't just have to take business courses. You can take multidisciplinary courses as well. So do you need to satisfy your major, your minor requirements, or maybe just graduation requirements in general? You're able to do that. One of my favorites is that Roehampton also has something called the London Studies program. So you could actually take business modules and combine those as well with things that use London as the classroom, whether it's London Theatre, visiting the Shakespeare Globe, or whether it's actually doing a business and finance module where you'd be going down into the city. So, can you still go abroad this coming spring? Yes, yes you can. And actually, the deadline isn't until November 1st. So please go on our website, take a look at what is available, and send in your application. For application tips and help, we have an entire staff here in the office.
Excellent. Thank you, Mary Catherine. Before we let you go, we actually have a recent returnee calling in with us. We have Kara. Are you there, Kara?
I'm here.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us on ISEP Live. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your home university?
I go to Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana. I'm a liberal arts major.
When were you studying at University of Roehampton?
I studied there this past summer during part of June, beginning of July.
Excellent. Great, great. Tell us what was the best part about living in a different culture for you? What did you enjoy most?
I really enjoyed just the melting pot of cultures that was there, because just everything you could think of. Every market you went to, every place, there were so many different people, all different cultures, and kind of go there and you think it's going to be all British people, but it was a lot of British people, but then Indians and my mind is going blank, but there were so many different people, and it was. I also really liked the walking part of the culture, because here where I live, it's a small town, but it's too big to just walk everywhere.
Right.
In London, there's sidewalks everywhere, and you could take off and go to parks, go out to eat, and you don't need a car ever.
Yeah.
But and the parks, walking to the parks is my favorite part.
Of course. What were your favorite sites to see when you were in London?
Oh, all the museums. I took art in London museums, so 4 out of 5 class periods, we were just taking the tube and going somewhere in central London, and I thought that was the best thing ever.
Right.
I'm queen of asking for field trips, and I didn't even have to ask. We just did them. I really, really liked the National Gallery. Is probably my favorite. And the National Portrait Gallery, too, because I'm really into portraits. So.
Right. Well, before we let you go, what tips do you have for students who might be thinking about London?
Embrace your weekends, because the weekend you can go. A group of friends and I we took a weekend. It was a 3-day trip, and we went to Brighton Beach, and I think it was, other than like class stuff that was fun, it was the most fun I had the whole trip. It was the coldest weekend of the trip. We were at the beach, and it was still amazing.
Wow.
And then student discounts. You touched on that earlier, but there are a lot of student discounts there. Look it up before you go. And City Mapper is an app for your phone, and it's a big help too.
Great, great.
You type in where you are, where you want to go, and it'll give you all different kinds of routes of how to get there, how much it costs, if it's a rain-safe route, like everything.
Wow, that's excellent. Great tips. Thanks so much. And thanks for joining us. If you will hang out for just a little bit in case we have any questions, we can bring you back in if you have just a few more minutes.
I'm not busy.
Okay, excellent. Well, hang tight. We'll come back to you. But jumping back, before we let Mary Catherine go, question for you.
Yes.
You have experience living in London. You know what it's like. So what was the biggest surprise for you going to London? What didn't you expect or account for?
I actually thought that it was going to be British, like Kara was saying, and it is British, obviously, but it really is it's the capital of the world, right? So I now have friends from so many different countries around the globe that I met either through class or through just like outside activities that I joined being a Londoner.
Right.
So like one of my best friends now is from England, one's from Australia, Cyprus, Singapore, Sweden, and I can call my best friend Chantal, who lives and is from Switzerland.
Right.
So I mean, it's pretty amazing that becomes the normal part of your life, is living this really international experience in an international city.
Wow, sounds great. Thanks so much, Mary Catherine. And again, if you have questions for Mary Catherine, for Kara, for anyone who's spoken so far, any general questions, make sure you're asking them in our question and answer bar or tweeting at us with hashtag ISEPLive. So we will go ahead and jump into our last program. We have Joe Burrow, who is one of our assistant vice presidents, here to talk to us about Sacro Cuore in Italy.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you about the Università Cattolica del Sacro Cuore, which we'll refer to as Sacro Cuore throughout the rest of this presentation. But the one thing to keep in mind is all the other programs that we've talked about thus far are programs in English-speaking countries. And maybe your first thought isn't, hey, I want to go to Italy to study business, because one, how am I going to sort of assimilate and be able to make it through courses in another language? The great news about Sacro Cuore is that as a private institution, they were one of the first institutions in the country to really invest heavily in English language programming. So that means that their Italian students in business, finance, fashion, etc., have already taken a full complement of coursework in English and are highly proficient in English. And so you wouldn't find any sort of difficult transition or feel out of place at all if you were to go there and study. Something else to keep in mind that's really sort of unique about Sacro Cuore is that most program providers are going to offer programs in Italy that sort of fit the stereotype. They're going to offer you programs in Tuscany or in Rome or outside of Venice. But with ISEP, we really believe in trying to create as authentic a student experience as possible. And for us, that means offering a program that's in a place that's in reality something that an Italian student would experience all the time. And I can honestly say that Sacro Cuore is just like that. It's a urban campus in a very large city. It's a place that isn't your typical, Italian hill town or little hamlet. It really is a major metropolis. It's much more like living in New York City than it is like living in Tuscany. And one thing that is to your advantage, being a business student in particular there, is that you have all of the industry, technology, fashion industry at your fingertips, and it provides and affords fantastic opportunity for professional development, not just academic development. I think I mentioned, and this was also mentioned about London, that Milan is sort of the melting pot, like New York City, of Italy, and that's really true for Italians. For the last 6 decades after the Second World War, Italians from all over the country have come to Milan for jobs, for growth, for opportunity, because it's seen as a gateway to the rest of Central Europe. And I think that's true today in Milan. And because of that, you won't just hear the Milanese dialect spoken or Italian spoken in Milan, but you're going to hear Napoletano and Pugliese and Siciliano, and you'll be able to find restaurants from each of the regions there. So even if you don't have the chance to travel all throughout Italy, which I would highly recommend because the trains are really efficient and all available there, you absolutely can feel like you're traveling throughout Italy by experiencing it in the trattorie and restaurants and everything else that's right at the doorstep of the university in Milan. Some other things that I wanted to point out about the campus in particular is that the international staff that's available on the campus is really highly attuned to the needs of international students. Cattolica or Sacro Cuore being a private institution, they're really forward-thinking about having a global vision, and because of that, they're really welcoming to international students. They have a lot of degree-seeking international students from all over the world, so you'll be part of a very large community of students that are there not just for a semester or a summer, but that are also there to seek a master's degree or even their undergraduate education. So you really become woven into the culture of that institution, and oftentimes we've heard from our students that have left that Sacro Cuore in Milan, they feel like that they're an alumnus not only of an ISEP program, but really of this Sacro Cuore program, and they feel like they want to continue to stay in the loop with what's happening there and following the news that's coming out of the institution, because they feel like it's been a really formative experience in their education. A couple of other points to point out about academics for the time that I have. Again, we're focusing today really on sort of these core classes that focus on business, international relations, fashion and design, media and communications. But it's also important to remember that as a component of the classes that would be available to you in those disciplines, they also have a full complement of Italian culture classes and also language classes that could help you become more proficient in understanding your surroundings, and so you can acclimate more to your situation there in Milan. And I would highly recommend taking advantage of those courses. And they go everywhere from Italian film to Italian food and cuisine to Italian wine and the business of agriculture in Italy. All of those courses are available to you as a visiting scholar on their campus. And if you are going to Sacro Cuore proficient in Italian already, you can also enroll in some of the business classes that are taught by Italian professors in Italian. And I could think of no better way of having a leg up on the rest of the people that are competing for the same jobs in finance and business and economics when you come back to the States or wherever you're from than actually having experience and succeeding in a different language abroad. That's going to make you much more marketable as an international business person. So the last points that I'll kind of cover now, and this should be up on your screen, are the deadlines for our programs. If you're really interested and you want to go now, it's not too late. We still have spaces available for spring 2015. That would be study starting in January, and the deadline for that is November 15th, 2014. The cost, which includes tuition and housing, is $14,500. And if this spring is too early for you, but you're thinking about next year, I would encourage you not only to consider fall of 2015, so starting in September, but also maybe to consider a full year, because there's no better way to experience another culture than to really stay there for a prolonged period of time. And the deadline for both those programs is the same. It's April 5th, 2015. The cost for one semester, which will now include insurance as well as the tuition and housing, will be $14,700. The cost for the full year, which is tuition, housing, and ISEP insurance, is $27,000, which I know seems steep, but it really isn't when you're thinking about all that's going to be offered to you, and you're thinking about housing in a city like Milan, which is extraordinarily expensive to begin with. That's a relative bargain, and also given the proximity of the housing to the university campus and your ability to sort of become acculturated as part of the city itself.
Thanks so much, Joe.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Well, let's talk about, you have experience in Milan. So
Yeah.
what is a typical day for a student in Milan?
Yeah, I think that the really great thing about Sacro Cuore is that I mentioned it's an urban campus, and my undergrad was at NYU, so I made this analogy between Sacro Cuore and being in Milan and New York City, because it very much feels like that to me. NYU is a campus in a city. Sacro Cuore is a campus in the city, which means even though you have your classes and you have this sort of core quad and this understanding of campus life, really your classroom extends to the whole city around the campus. So you spend much of your time with other students, and also real Milanese in cafes, in osterie, eating and talking and sort of seeing people as they go about their daily business and lives. And an Italian lifestyle influences business. I mean, it's pervasive. So this concept of the pausa, unfortunately, the stereotype of Italians is that they're not such hard workers, but I would say that Italians are very hard workers. They just understand that it's very important to take time and socialize. It's a very human contact-oriented culture, and I think Sacro Cuore is kind of the perfect place to experience that, because even though Milan is a very fast-paced, very, very wealthy, very influential city, not only in Italy but in all of Europe, people really take the time to go have a coffee and talk to their barista, or have a long lunch and talk to their colleagues. And so that's something that you'll experience as a student being there as well.
So in that fast-paced culture with an ISEP student studying at Sacro Cuore, what does support look like? Who's there to help them if they need it?
Yeah, well, I also have some personal interest in this, because one of the leaders of the office at Sacro Cuore worked for ISEP for many years. And so she's really, really well-versed in ISEP member institutions, the types of benefits that are required for membership, and how to handle a visiting student's perspective while on campus, because she's sort of a third culture person in herself. She is from Switzerland, came and lived in the States, and studied in the States, and now lives in Milan. And so not only her, but much of her staff is like that. They have quite a few staff that are first or second generation Italian, Australians, or Latin Americans that now have decided that they studied at Sacro Cuore and they wanted to stay so they could provide experiences like their own for students like you. And so if you need someone that can speak to you in English, they're there. If you need somebody that's going to force you and challenge you to speak Italian, they're there as well. And they're pretty young, they're pretty dynamic. They know where the fun places are in the city as well.
Thank you so much, Joe, for sharing with us. Before we do let you go, we do want to remind you of our hashtag #ISEPLive. If you have questions now or as you start to research these programs even more, definitely utilize that hashtag. That's a great place to get in touch with us to find more information about our programs. Finally, before we let you go, we want to give you some steps from here. So you've learned about these programs. What's next? It's time to start doing your research. So look into these programs. Utilize our website, www.isep.org, and connect with us on social media. Most of the large social media channels were at ISEP Study Abroad. That's a great way to learn about our programs, see more information, start to look into the specifics. Another great resource is our ISEP catalog. Those are available in your study abroad office at your home university. Go and see them, pick up a catalog, and while you're there, this brings me to point number 2, ask to meet with your ISEP coordinator. That's someone on your campus who understands ISEP, knows our programs and what's going on with our application process, and they're around to help you. So they can help you through the application process, they can help you think about which location, which sites are the best option for you, and really be there to support you right on your campus. And finally, it's time to apply. Once you've decided on a program and spoken with your coordinator, you can go directly to www.isep.org/apply and start our application process. It's never too soon to start looking at that and start to think about what your application looks like. So that is all the time we have today for ISEP Live. Thanks so much for joining us. Also, thank you to Kara and all of our program staff who are here to help us out and answer our questions. If you would like to watch this video again immediately after the broadcast, it will be available on our YouTube channel. So check us out there. And again, let us know how we can help. Thanks.